Good morning and welcome to the Keilor East RSL Anzac Day Dawn Service. We will shortly commence the service, and I ask that you ensure that your mobile phones or any connected devices is set to silent or turned off. A reminder to those who are able, please stand and remove your headdress at the saying of the Ode, sounding of the last post and singing of the national anthems. I'd like to welcome our invited guests here today, the Mayor of the City of Moonee Valley, Councillor Piers Tyson, with Councillors John Sypek and Samantha Byrne, the State Member from Niddry, the Honourable Ben Carroll MP, the Federal Member for Maribyrnong, the Honourable Bill Shorten MP. We at Keilor East RSL acknowledge the traditional custodians throughout Australia. We recognise their continuing connection to land, sea and waters. We pay our respect to elders past and present. We acknowledge the commitment of Indigenous servicemen and women, both past and present, to Australia. I'd now like to welcome Mr. John Johnson, OAM, President of Keilor East RSL, for the welcoming address.
Good morning, everybody. Anzac Day and its activities, in spite of criticism and a lack of understanding by many younger people, still has a profound meaning for most Australians as a way of remembering the making of a nation. The reasons for Anzac Day are blurred for many young people, mainly because of the way it is celebrated, but they contain a basic truth that should give us a great pride. For the dawn services, the marches and the reunions of ex-servicemen and women throughout Victoria are a recognition of the contribution which those we remember on this day sought to give in two world conflicts and many other conflicts since to make a democracy and freedom safe. If Anzac Day had been a militarist celebration, it would have been renounced long ago, but it is not. Before everything else, it is a day of remembrance for fallen comrades, husbands, parents, friends. The words, lest we forget, do not refer to ancient quarrels, but to the men and women who died pursuing the hard road of duty. Australians volunteered in their thousands in all conflicts, ready to surrender their lives. For despite the remoteness of Australia, of the conflicts and their causes, the issue was simple. A democracy was being beleaguered, innocent people were being attacked, and their countries were being invaded. So Australia came of age, cognizant of its responsibility as a free nation, to preserve freedom and ready to take up arms to defend that freedom. It is significant and puzzling to foreigners that Australia has chosen as our day of commemoration the anniversary, not of a military victory, but what strategics call a strategic failure, just as Dunkirk means more to Englishmen than the triumphs of Alamein or Normandy, so the Gallipoli landing stirs more deeply than the breaking of the Hindenburg Line or the capture of Bardia. We are not celebrating the winning of wars, we are remembering the people who sacrificed their lives so that the wars could be won and freedom preserved. Today is the 109th anniversary of the landings at Gallipoli. It's also HMAS submarine AE2 penetrated the Dardanelles in Turkey. They were the only ones who ever got into Turkish into the Turkish area. They damaged Turkish ships before running out of air, had to come up to surface and became POWs. The 3rd Battalion of the Royal Australian Regiment engaged in Kapyong on this day in Korea. They held back Chinese troops 5 times more than them, and the first Australian-born troops were on the way to the Maori Wars in 1860, which is 164 years. I thank you and I hope you enjoy the day and be good.
Thank you, John. Anzac Day prayer, read today by Mr. Christopher Mawson.
Lord God, Help us this day to remember the sacrifice of the first Anzacs, Australian and New Zealander, and the generations of men, women and children who have died in the cause of liberty and peace. Help us to remember those who still bear the physical and mental scars and disabilities of their service. Help us to remember the widows, girlfriends, parents and orphans and all those who waited in vain for the return of a loved one. Help us to remember the mateship, agony, courage and compassion of war service, but save us from ever glorifying the horror and tragedy of war. Lord God, help us to remember. Amen.
Thank you, Christopher. I'll now ask Mrs. Ann Salt to come up and read the Grieving Mother.
I had no skills to offer, I had no wealth to spend. Mine was a greater glory, I had a son to send. Silently the shades of evening gather round my lonely door. Silently they bring before me the face I shall see no more.
Thank you, Anne. Beneath the Faded Words by Peter Thomas. Read today by Mr. John Johnson, OEM, President, Keilor East RSL.
It sat out in the shearing shed for 30 years or more, with cobwebs, dust and binder twine and sheep dung on the floor. An old and rusted lockwood kept its secrets from my eyes, a cabin trunk of leather, there since 1945. I asked my dad who owned it and what we kept it for. He replied, it's Uncle Basil's that he brought back from the war. So don't you bloody touch it or I'll tan your bloody hide. But that only made me more intrigued to see what was inside. I wondered at its mysteries and the secrets that it hid. Beneath the faded word Tobruk, stenciled on the lid, near Wilcannia, where the only hardy cattlemen will go, Uncle Basil had a station, Baden Park, near Ivanhoe. A strong and gentle man who once rode the Birdsville track, just to prove he wasn't hampered by the shrapnel in his back. So I stood alone and weighed it up. Which would I decide? Should I leave the memories undisturbed or take a look inside? I knew I had to take a look to see what it had held. Medals, spoils from the war, silver, jewels or gold. The old man went off fishing off a Sunday with Bob Gray. So if I was going to do it, that would have to be the day. I started out determined. I was done by 2:10. With half a broken hacksaw blade, I cut the padlock through. But even as I opened it, the truth was plain and clear. The old trunk held no gold or jewels. There was no treasure here. A pile of letters tied with string, an old moth-eaten flag, a rusty metal helmet and mouldy webbing bag, a cup made from a jam tin and a neat emu feathered hat, and a newspaper clipping with the title, Desert Rat. Some furrows of the pyramids, a rusty bayonet, an IOU, Jack Carmody, £2 a 2-up bet. I folded out a faded map as the day began to wane. Foreign places like Benghazi, Tobruk, El Alamein. Then I came upon a satchel and a little leather book, and a photo of some young blokes, so I took a closer look. It was 20 young recruits, their faces tanned and worn, from places like Kahuna, Moama and Bomon. Farmers, shearers, stockmen, off to fight a noble war, for the empire in a foreign land they'd never seen before. And scrawled across the bottom, in writing rough and coarse, 20 names below the words, the Echuca boys, light horse. I turned the photo over, and there upon the back were words that sent a chill through me and made my mouth go slack. A solemn list of 20, the fate of each the same. Everyone but Uncle Basil had a date besides their name. Some had April 43, some said June, July. A record from our history, the date that each had died. I turned back to the photo and looked in every face, and written over each one was a month, a year, a place. A grinning, sunburned soldier's face, each now with a name, like November 1943, the words El Alamein. I wonder did they think, as they sailed across the foam, that amongst them only one, Uncle Basil, would come home. Recorded in that little book, I remember to this day, a record of their actions and how each had passed away. A mortar shell out on patrol, a sniper in the night. A landmine took one man's legs off. He died before first light. The death of each was brutal. The reality was stark. 40 pages written there, I finished just on dark. I slowly closed that record of the men who kept us free and turned to see my father standing silently. He didn't do his block as I expected that he would. He just said, "Come on, pack it up. I reckon that we should." So with loving care, we packed away the treasures from the past. When I came upon the photograph, it was put aside till last. And with new respect and love, I recorded where's his fate. Next to Uncle Basil, I wrote April '68. Yeah, Dad and I packed it up and put it back again and wrapped it in a bit of tarp to keep it from the rain. We never spoke about it or discussed what I had read. I reckon that was his way to respect those men long dead. There's a statue of a digger in most every country town and a list of names of locals who fought with great renown. And now when I go by, I remember what I read, sitting on the floor out there in our old shearing shed. And I think of Uncle Gordon, lost somewhere on Ambon, Uncle Jack on a Coca-Cola, and in England, Uncle John. I remember still that photo with sadness and remorse, that mob of grinning faces, the Echuca boys, light horse. In a cemetery near Ivanhoe lies a bloke who's left his mark, Basil Thomas of Echuca, Tobruk and Baden Park, written by Peter Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I'd now like to call on our guest speaker, Mr. Brian Woodward.
Greetings to everyone present here this morning in remembrance of those who have served and aided this great nation. As we gather here today, we remember those souls who have departed and those who have served. And of course, those who are currently serving and whom are on deployment away from their families. This year, we also place the spotlight upon those women and men who have served not only in combat situations, but those who have served under the peacekeeping and peacemaking banner, including our federal police. The Australian Defence Force has been engaged in peacekeeping since 1947. The first deployment involved 4 Australians who were deployed to Indonesia under the deployment aid, the United Nations Good Officers Commission. Since the first deployment, the Australian Federal Police and the Australian Defence Force has been engaged in peacekeeping, peacemaking and peace-building operations in 71 missions spanning across the world. Australia taking the lead in Cambodia from 1992 to 1993, Multinational Peace Monitoring Group in Bougainville from 1998 to 2003, Multinational International Force for East Timor in 1999 to 2001, and regional assistant missions to the Solomon Islands from 2003 to 2017. In 1999 and 2000, some 1,500 Australian Defence Force personnel were deployed to East Timor. This deployment at the time was the largest military deployment of Australian service personnel since the Second World War. I was fortunate and proud to have been involved in this deployment in 1999 and returning to Timor-Leste for a second tour in 2001 to see a country that was in chaos transformed to a nation slowly rebuilding peace. This has had an effect on me personally, and all those that have served in the country and supported us back in Australia should be proud of what we did and what we achieved. Of course, we cannot forget and will not forget those souls that have died for this great nation. A total of 106 women and men have died during the deployment on United Nations missions, including at least 8 detection animals. Coming from a military family background this morning, I also remember my father Colin, who served in Vietnam, my eldest brother Colin, who served in Bougainville, and my brother Tony, who served in Rwanda, Somalia, and the Solomon Islands. Together, we have a total of 56 years of military service between the 4 of us. We are very proud of what we accomplished, and we are grateful to a thankful community and nation. I would also like to pay tribute and thank my grandfather, my late Uncle Ian, and my late godfather, John, who served this country as well. I would like to thank each and every single person and animal that has and continues to serve, including our fantastic nurses, our doctors and hospital staff, and those who are currently serving both here in Australia and overseas on operations. In conclusion, although this year we honour those who have had the good fortune to serve on operations overseas, we must never ever forget those who have worn the uniform and still do. Furthermore, we should give thanks to and remember those who have served as members of the Australian Defence Force during the years of relative peace, continuously preparing for conflict that we all hope would never come to pass. Lest we forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I'd now like to call on Mr. Daniel Simpson to read the Vale.
This is for members who have passed since November 2023. Frank Drury, Ronald Allen, Ronald Goodwin, Lindsay Foster, Vincent Dawson, Martin Fitzsimmons, John Kimberley, Samuel Burnside, John Cate, Klaus Billen, Perce McLaughlin, Fiona Lynch, Gwyneth Boyle, Doris Ong, Jacqueline Payne, Ron Stockman, William Liddell, Michael Courtney, and John Barter. Lest we forget.
Thank you, Daniel. And I ask all those who are laying wreaths to please assemble over by the wreaths. Mr. John Johnson, OAM, President, Keilor East RSL. Ms. Jenny Brown, Senior Vice President, Keilor East RSL, Region 3. Mr. Brian Woodward, Australian Peacemakers, Peacekeepers. Thanks. Piers Tyson, accompanied by John Sypek and Samantha Byrne. Honourable Ben Carroll, MP, State Member for Niddry, Minister for Industry and Innovation, Minister for Manufacturing Sovereignty, Minister for Employment and Public Transport, and Deputy Premier. Honourable Bill Shorten, MP, Federal Member for Maribyrnong, Minister for NDIS, Minister for Government Services. Jeff Sadler, Hall Leader, St John's Ambulance, on behalf of all first responders, with Kath Smith and Molly Wellington. Mr Peter Austin, Vietnam Veterans, Northwest Region. Mrs Alba Lewis, Essendon Legacy Widows. Mr William Laker, Keilor East National Serviceman. Mr Bob Brown, 58 32nd Battalion Association. Mr Ross Dargan and Miss Emily Darrigan, President, 39th Infantry Battalion Association. Miss Bruna Norrish, Women's Veteran Network Association. Mr Justin Navas, Essendon SES. Mrs Amanda Stevenson, on behalf of her late father, Ron King. Mr John Cordwell, on behalf of his late father, Brian. Miss Alicia Ligura, on behalf of her late great-grandfather, Noel Brown. Ms Louisa Levitas, for animals killed in all wars. Mrs Jeanette Burke, on behalf of Keilor East RSL management and staff. Ms Megan Stapleton, Moonee Valley Brass Band. Mr. Billy Wigmore for East Keilor Cricket Club. Mr. Neville Duncan for Carinya Society. Mr. Greg Hanley, President Rotary Club of Strathmore. Nidri Traders. James Camerino and Ryan Gustanich for Aberfeldy Sports Club. Charlie and Otto, First Moonee Pond Scout Group. Lucy Collins and Scarlett Jordan for Keilor Primary School. Ryder Watts for Aberfeldy Primary School. Sienna, Archie and Jamie Keppel for St Teresa's Primary School Lesson. Mia Sprague, Over Newton Anglican Community College. Bell, Poppy and Gordon for Essendon North Primary. Evan McKenna Burke, School Captain, Rosehill Secondary College. And I'd like to offer the opportunity for anybody else who would like to relay a wreath, please do so now. Thank you. I'd ask all those who are able to please stand for the reading of Laurence Binyons for the Fallen by Miss Bruna Norrish.
They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Bruna. Please remain standing for the singing of the New Zealand and Australian national anthems, led by Amanda Stevenson.
We've boundless plains to share. With courage let us all combine to advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, everybody. That concludes today's service. I'd like to thank all of you who attended today, to all of our readers, to Amanda for singing, to Barry for piping, our trumpeter Fiona, all those who laid wreaths, the schools that attended, St John's who've assisted today, Rotary, the club staff and volunteers who have assisted, and all of the local businesses who have supported today. They're listed on the back of the program. On behalf of the President and Committee, I would like to invite you back to the club rooms for the traditional gunfire breakfast, or in this case, egg and bacon rolls, sausage sizzle, total rum, and some beer. Sausage sizzle will be in the car park, egg and bacon rolls will be available. All donations will go to veterans and their families. I ask all current and past service people here today to make sure that they see a committee member, not me, so I actually haven't been given any yet, to get a wristband, and they'll provide you with some free refreshments across the bar. Thanks for your attendance. Enjoy the day. May it be a good one, and we hope to see you again next year.
That's really sicky, mate. I mean, I'll be happy if kids take that. Are you going to do this? Sure, I don't know if you're going to post it or not. it.